camera. Welcome, everybody. It's another Monday. See, I'm still getting used to this Monday and not Thursday thing. But it's another Monday, and this is another special episode of InfoSec Unplugged with me, your host, Davin Jackson, a.k.a. D-Jax. Thank you for joining. I know it's the start of the week, and, people are just kind of getting their stuff together or probably just coming in from their days. But I thank you all for joining. And, or if you're coming back, thank you for coming back. So if you missed last week, we started the first part of a two-part special called Grief and Coping Strategies with Megan and Dwayne Dunstan. Megan was giving a presentation on different types of stressors and griefs and traumas and things that we go through day in and day out. And it was a really great presentation. And if you've missed that, you can click this link here, or you can just check out my YouTube or Twitch channels because it's there. After tonight, Megan and Dwayne will also have copies of their copies of these episodes as well. So you can also link up with them and meet them on social media. But I lost my train of thought. But basically, what we're going to do tonight is conclude our two-part presentation. I do have Megan and Dwayne back with us for another episode to talk about more of the strategies this time. Just like last time, these are just her opinion based on things that she's seen. This isn't like a licensed professional's opinion or diagnosis or prescription. So, please keep that in mind when you're watching and listening to this presentation, no matter where you are. So with that being said, I do want to bring my guests in. So ladies and gentlemen, everybody watching, please welcome Megan and Dwayne Dunstan again for Grief and Coping Strategies Part 2.
Hello, good evening. Thanks so much for joining us. So as I mentioned last week, I'm a licensed clinical mental health counselor in Vermont and work with a wide variety of individuals. And one of the common themes to my work with everyone has been trauma and grief. And there's so many. Last week we went through the multiple kinds of losses in which we experience grief, from the things that we typically think about with mourning, such as death or divorce, but it also can extend to things like a neighbor moving far away, or something not turning out as we expected. So we talked about a great number of losses last time, and then some common experiences in the wake of loss. So various stages of grief, and a big part of each stage of grief comes with painful, often intense emotions. So this, what I want to focus on in this part, is more about coping with the emotions associated with grief. So that's where I plan to go tonight, and I will share our screen. I'll share the screen here for the PowerPoint presentation. Sorry, my mouse is getting wonky.
Yeah, but I don't see it on the thing. You might have to share it again.
Sharing. Hold on 1 second. I wonder why it's right here. Can you see it now?
Nope. I still don't see it.
Okay. Should be under window. Oh, there. There?
Yep, there it is.
Okay, good.
All right.
Into slideshow. All right. So we're going to talk about emotions tonight. So there are 10 primary human emotions. They're common to all cultures. Different cultures have different words and conceptualizations of them, but basically every culture has a conception of sadness, fear, anger, disgust, envy, joy, love, shame, and guilt, and jealousy. So any of those emotions can come in the context of grief. Certainly sadness is the prominent emotion, but the stages we talked about last week also included anger and guilt and fear. So those are also common experiences to have. So as with all emotions, emotions are a multi-system experience. So it involves hormones in our body. It involves the kinds of thoughts that our brains fire off. The electrical currents, different parts of the brain light up with different emotions that we experience. So really, emotions can be an entire brain-body phenomenon. And emotions are an important source of information. Our emotions give us information about what's dangerous, about what we value, can give us information about what's socially acceptable or what norms are in a given subculture or even room of people. So it's important to pay attention to the information that emotions have for us. And as painful as emotions feel, they cannot damage us. So even though it may feel like I can't stand to feel like this for another moment, we will get through to the other side. All emotions are temporary. We have felt differently before, and we will feel differently again. So keeping that in mind when it's happening, and sometimes we even need to remind ourselves, like this too shall pass. Thinking back that, I have felt other emotions, I will feel other emotions in the future, as hard as it is to get through some moments. We can accept, regulate, and tolerate our emotions. And tonight we're going to talk about kind of the difference between when to sit with and tolerate and when to use some coping skills to help regulate emotion, particularly when they feel out of control. Because when emotions are so painful that we're overwhelmed, we can use skills to bring those emotions down to a level that we can actually sit through and get to the other side of those emotions. So that's kind of what my plan is in terms of where we're going tonight.
And Maggie,
Yeah.
Someone posted a question, but too much fear can alter brain activity, right?
It can temporarily. And certainly, trauma can create neural pathways. However, like so if we have multiple moments where it is justified fear, where we are under some threat, if we spend a lot of minutes in that state, that over time it can change blood flow to different parts of the brain. But in terms of like if we're not in an acutely traumatic situation, every emotion that we experience is temporary, and we will come out the other side of it. So sometimes it feels like this sadness is going to kill me, or I can't stand it. But the truth is we can stand it, and we will stand it. Sometimes like having an emotion feels like a crisis, but the emotion itself isn't a danger to us, as painful as it may be. Does that answer the question?
I think it does about it altering the brain activity. Now, are you going to talk about? I mean, I know sometimes we should probably know, when to know the difference, right? You talked about earlier about when, you're kind of going through that. It's not going to hurt us, or it's not going to it's not going to be the end of the world, so to speak. But sometimes in that moment, it does feel like that. It feels like your whole world is crashing down on you, and it does start to affect you physically. Like make some people get claustrophobic and have it, start having like anxiety attacks or have problems breathing and stuff like that. So, are you going to talk about almost strategies on how to just get yourself out of that?
Yes, both in the short term and in the long term. Because for people who have experienced trauma, have spent many minutes in the fight or flight response, that mindfulness practiced regularly over time really helps to, in a way, kind of rewire our central nervous system. The more moments that we can spend focused on neutral or relaxing stimuli, the better the blood flow is to the outer cortex, which is the more abstract thinking part of the brain. So in the long term, practicing mindfulness meditation, things we're going to cover tonight can help with that. In the short term, things that can bring heart rate down quickly, that can bring blood pressure down quickly, that we're going to look at some of the techniques to do that when we really need to metabolize some of that excess stress hormone. So if people are on the verge of a panic attack, or if they are in fight or flight, temporarily how to bring that down, as well as working on that over the long term, if that makes sense. So we'll be talking about both sets of strategies.
Sounds good.
Yeah, tonight. So I just have here kind of a table of contents, like where we're going to be talking about in detail tonight. So some of the coping skills that I'm going to teach, there are a lot of acronyms in dialectical behavior therapy, which is the kind of therapy that I do, and that most of my training is in. So we're going to talk about the stop and the tip skill, and those are both acronyms. We'll talk about distraction, when to use it, and when distraction actually kind of veers into being avoidance and not so effective or helpful. We'll talk about self-soothing and ways that we can help soothe the senses and nurture ourselves, particularly when we're having a painful time emotionally. There's another acronym, improve, when we can't change things or make things better right away, how we can get through those minutes without making it worse, and hopefully maybe have a little bit of relief. And then we're going to talk about letting go and urge surfing and kind of allowing emotion rather than trying to hold it back. So that's where we're headed next. So the first acronym that we're going to talk about tonight in terms of coping skills is the STOP skill, S-T-O-P. When I have taught this, when I was teaching this skill to adolescents once, they questioned whether an acronym can actually use the acronym as the first word letter in it. So STOP is also the first, the STOP acronym is also the first letter S for stop. So if we're going to use the STOP skill, the first thing we do is stop, do nothing. So if it feels like we're on the verge of just losing it or engaging in an impulsive behavior that might make the future worse, to actually even say out loud sometimes, stop. The T is for take a step back, to pull oneself out of the situation for a moment and try to neutrally describe what is happening. Observe, take stock, so observe and describe what's going on, and then proceed mindfully. So thinking, okay, what is my goal here and how can I behave in a way that's going to be strategic? So stop, take a step back, observe, and proceed mindfully. So for example, if I receive an email that's really critical of me, and have an urge to just fire back some really colorfully worded response, that I might say just like stop, take a step back. Okay, what actually is happening? I just received this email. These are the sentences that I'm interpreting as critical. What's my goal with this person? What's going on in my body? I feel my chest is tight. I'm feeling shame. I'm feeling anger. Is it skillful to respond right now? And if I decide my emotional level is probably at a point where I'm not going to respond in a constructive manner, then proceeding mindfully might mean shutting down my computer and going for a walk. So that would be an example of using the stop skill like in that kind of situation. So STOP is how we can remember that. Stop, take a step back, observe, and proceed mindfully. The more escalated we are emotionally, the more we need probably interventions or things to do that intervene directly with our biology. So what I mean by that is if my emotional intensity level from 0 to 10 is an 8 or higher, I probably am going to need to intervene with my biology before I try to look at my thoughts or work with my thoughts or use a complicated skill. So sometimes even the stop skill, I mean, that we can say stop and step back for a moment. If I'm feeling on the verge of being out of control, I'm going to move to the tip skill next, which is what I'm going to talk about. So this is the set of skills to use. If my anger is an 8 out of 10 or higher, 8, 9, or 10, I'm going to use temperature first. If my anxiety is at an 8, 9, or 10, I'm going to use temperature first. So when I say temperature, I'm talking about ice. So there is a human evolutionary adaptation that we've developed to help us stay alive as a species, and it's called the dive response. So any of you who have background in anatomy probably know more about this than I do, but I'll tell you what I know. From what a physician has told me, we have certain nerve endings in our cheeks, sort of right by the nose and under the eyes, and on the sides of our neck below our ears, that are designed to pick up on any cold and wet sensation. So when we've heard stories about people who have fallen through ice and they've survived like 2 hours without air, the reason they survived is because we have this adaptation called the dive response. So when those nerves pick up on cold wetness, immediately it sends our central nervous system into slow down mode. It is a way of preserving oxygen. So the reason that the person who is out ice fishing and falls below the ice can survive that long is because immediately their body started slowing everything way down. So that there was enough oxygen so the brain wasn't damaged. This is why turtles can hibernate in ponds and have their heartbeat like once a day, because they have that slow down as well. So we can artificially create that by sticking our face in a bowl of ice water for 30 seconds or so. So I actually, I don't know if you can see me, but I brought my bowl of ice water here. You also can achieve a very similar thing with a gallon-size Ziploc bag, which I also have one next to me as well. Maybe at the end I'll show you. So if you get one of the...
We can see you.
You can see me? Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So I have my giant ice bag here. So what we can do is if I am feeling like I'm on the verge of a panic attack, or if I'm feeling incredibly angry or any other emotion where I'm like shaking with intensity, then I can go ahead and lay back, put this right on my face, some of those nerve endings are right there, and leaving it on for 30 seconds. So that will turn on. Oh, I'm feeling a little calmer now. I actually, at work, when we have clients in the office, we have Ziploc bags of ice just in the freezer in case we need to give clients that just in the room. So it basically tricks the body into slowing everything way down. And I promise, 30 seconds after either putting ice on the face or sticking the face in a bowl of ice water, like the one I have here. I have makeup on, so I won't actually stick my face in, but I could. That it will slow everything down. And after 30 seconds, heart rate will be slower, breathing rate will be slower, blood will be circulating less quickly throughout the central nervous system. So that is an absolute go-to when we feel out of control. It's often a skill that when I work with people who have engaged in who use self-harm behavior as a way to try to regulate their emotions, this is the best replacement behavior for that. Because often, like when people cut themselves, what they're looking for is some relief. And there is an endorphin thing that happens with that, but it also comes with, tissue damage and scarring and there are other problematic things about self-harm. So in order to achieve that kind of jolting out of one kind of mindset and into another, ice is really effective for that. And even in Vermont, like tap water is generally cold enough to help to do the trick, since what comes out of the faucet is generally pretty cold, even in the summer in Vermont. So
we have a question here.
Yeah.
So sitting under AC should keep that at a steady circulation.
It could slow it down. I don't know if that's cold enough, or if without the wetness, if those nerve endings in the face and in the neck would induce that response. It could, but I haven't seen research on that.
So it's a shock aspect.
Yeah. I was gonna say he followed up with saying it's a shock aspect then.
Yeah, and that the combination of cold and wet sensation is what tells the brain to slow everything down. So that is, particularly for panic attacks, a very effective strategy for helping manage, because everything speeds way up in the case of panic.
Okay, so John, I want to thank you for your question, and he also said thank you for answering. But to everybody else watching, to my pack, again, thank you for joining. I know it's a little off balance with it being a Monday, and we're usually live on Thursdays. But I thank you for being here. This is an important conversation. Megan is doing a great job helping us explain certain things we could do. A lot of the time, especially in our tech and InfoSec community, you hear a lot of us talking about burnout, or just kind of having some high stress situations where we can't function and have to step away. Case in point, speaking for myself here. So if anybody else, if you guys have a question, like always, you are more than welcome to ask away. I just ask that you, as always, keep it clean, keep it respectful, and either me or Megan or Dwayne will do our best to answer the questions. So, all right, Megan, let's see. And then John says, this is great to know for scenarios when we can help each other suffering from attacks as well. Absolutely.
Yeah.
So go ahead.
Yeah. So temperature and, kind of similar things that people have used, again, to kind of jolt the system, walking barefoot in snow, standing out in the rain, those kinds of sensations can really help us pull from kind of being in one place into another. The other thing I like about the temperature skill is if you have not put your face in a bowl of ice water for 30 seconds, it is so intense that there's not a lot of room for thinking. So if I get stuck in a particular thought loop, where I'm replaying a conversation that I feel really embarrassed about something I said, or I'm really angry about something and I keep thinking about it over and over again. Often sticking my face in a bowl of ice water, in addition to that intervening with my biology, it also helps kind of stop that thought track from being on repeat. So that's kind of a side benefit of that skill as well. I would encourage, with any of the skills that I teach tonight, to use them when you're not in distress. So even after watching this tonight, to go ahead and fill up an ice water bowl and put ice in it, and stick your face in it for 30 seconds and see how you feel. Because when we rehearse something, it actually stores it in our brain in a different place than if we just abstractly talk about doing something. So actually, when I teach these skills in groups, I bring Ziplocs of ice for everyone, and we all do it together for 30 seconds, just so that we have lived that experience, and it stores it in a different place, which is more accessible when we are under stress, if that makes sense. So with the tip, with intense exercise and the paced breathing that I'm going to teach tonight, I would encourage you to practice those anytime so that they're more available to you when you need them. So that's the T in tip. The I, the next strategy that we'll talk about, is intense exercise. So this is kind of going in the other direction. So with temperature, we're like slowing everything down. With intense exercise, we are trying to temporarily speed everything up to help burn off some of the excess stress hormones that we have going on. So when I say intense exercise, I don't mean like a whole 45-minute cardio session with aerobics or something. More a really short burst of exerting some energy. So jumping up and down, like maybe as high as one can for 2 minutes, or running around the block as fast as your legs can carry you, or really beating a punching bag kind of as hard and fast as you can without hurting yourself or damaging property. But something like short bursts of intense energy to help burn through some of the excess adrenaline, cortisol. Those are two of the primary stress hormones that our bodies excrete when we are in an escalated emotional state. So you could try that. I've even had clients report some success with like getting themselves into bed and then flopping like a fish out of water, kind of kicking and flopping. To get to burn off some of that excess energy in a way that doesn't damage property or hurt their bodies. So that is the I. I'd say if the emotions are really intense, like 8, 9, or 10, I would try ice first. And if you still are feeling pretty escalated, then I would move to intense exercise. Or if your emotions are in maybe the 6 or 7 out of 10 range, intense exercise might be the one to go to. And then see how you feel after that, whether you might need to use another strategy that's aimed at your body. So that is the
funny thing is, and I have a heavy bag, so honestly, that actually helps me a lot when, like, if I'm feeling stressful, like it sounds a little weird or violent sometimes. I'm like, okay, I need to go hit something, and I'll go for 30, 45 minutes sometimes, and just punch it out, and then I'm like, okay, all right, I'm calm now. But I found that to be very helpful. Especially over the course of like the last year or so, where like I feel like I can't do anything else. I'm like, okay, I need to go hit something, and obviously I don't want to harm myself. So that was probably one of the best investments that I would recommend if you can get a heavy bag or something. If you like to box or do any type of martial arts, yeah, that definitely helps me as well.
Yeah, because physiologically, you're in a really different place than when you started. It sounds like, based on what you just said. Yeah, which makes a lot of sense that you would have like metabolized those stress hormones faster through that exertion. Yeah, great idea. So the T and the I, and then the P is for paced breathing. Paced breathing is one that I would use after my emotional intensity had come down a bit. So if it's in the 5 or 6 range, paced, or even anything below that too, paced breathing could be a great option. Of all of these, it's the most portable because we always have our breath with us. We can do this skill anywhere. People don't even know we're using it. I used this skill both times I got my COVID vaccine this spring while I was waiting to help keep my body regulated. So just backing up for a little bit in terms of some human physiology overview. So we, most of us have heard about the fight, flight, or freeze response. So when we are presented with some trigger, when there's some threat, that our body starts pumping blood really quickly. So our heart rate increases. We start breathing quickly to help oxygenate our muscles quickly in the event that we would need to fight or run. We also have a mode that our central nervous system can be in called the parasympathetic nervous system. So the sympathetic nervous system, the fight or flight response is everything speeding up. The parasympathetic nervous system calms everything down because as someone mentioned earlier about, kind of trauma and fear not being great for our systems, it's really taxing on our organs to be in the fight or flight mode. So once our brain has assessed that we're out of danger, our parasympathetic nervous system turns on, which helps slow everything down, helps calm us, helps release tension in our muscles. So we can help turn that parasympathetic nervous system on by doing things like paced breathing and paired muscle relaxation. So I'll talk about paced breathing first, and then I'll add the paired muscle relaxation next. Paced breathing is synchronizing our breath to certain counts in order to help turn on the parasympathetic nervous system. So when we inhale for a count of 5 and we exhale for a count of 7, that helps our our body calm down. When we breathe in a slow, controlled way, our brain gets the message that there's not danger here, because if there was some predator in front of me, I would not be breathing in that manner. So controlling the breath can help control everything else. So I'll lead us through just a couple rounds of this, because again, doing it experientially helps it be more accessible to us in the future. So I'm just going to lead us through 2 rounds of paced breathing, and we'll do 5, 7. So you can just kind of let your body be loose right now. And we're going to inhale together, starting now for a count of 5. Starting now, inhale 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and exhale 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Again, deep breath in. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Exhale 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. You can return to your natural breath. But that's, and you can experiment with the count. Some people, like a 3-second inhale and a 7-second exhale. So you can experiment and see. If you want a burst of energy, reverse it and have your inhale be longer than your exhale. But for our purposes in regulating emotion, usually having the inhale be shorter than the exhale. So that's paced breathing. The other thing I like about paced breathing, in addition to breathing in that slow, controlled way and kind of giving all of our systems the signal that we're safe, is that it also gives me something to focus on. So sometimes people say, take a deep breath. And while that's great, I can ruminate and take a deep breath at the same time. It's a little bit more helpfully distracting for me to have that like needing to synchronize my breath to the count. So that is another option. So that's paced breathing.
Can I jump in with one tip that I have?
Sure.
And this actually helps me go to sleep at night. I focus on my breathing, and when I breathe in, it feels like cool, and then when you breathe out, it feels hot. And I just pay attention to that sensation. And when I find my mind has distracted myself, I start counting from 1 to 20. And every time I feel myself like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, I'm like 5. Okay, I'm thinking about something else. I start over again, back to 1.
Mm-hmm.
And that helps my mind to start to slow down. And eventually I'm just off to sleep. I don't even realize it. I don't think I've ever counted to 20 before that I can recall in the years since I've been knowing that. So it's either counting or just pay attention to the sensation in your nose. Because when you breathe in, it's cool. When you breathe out, it's hot. Just feel that sensation each time. And also brings your awareness back to your breathing.
Yeah.
To touch on that, I think what I've done is something similar, but I just literally like telling myself to breathe. So I'm literally going inhale, exhale, and so in my mind I'm saying inhale, exhale. So this way my brain is focused on just saying inhale, exhale, inhale, exhale. The next thing you know, I'll either go to sleep. And then the other thing is, Dwayne, I totally forgot to mention your beautiful green beard this week. So there you go. For those who don't know, Dwayne had I guess you want to call it a challenge or a bet going on social media that if he got enough retweets, he would dye his beard green for the Diana Initiative conference coming up, which is again for a great cause. And what is it now? Is it 1,000 likes or 1,000 retweets?
1,000 likes, 1,000 retweets. I wear green lipstick and green eyeliner and eyeshadow and a green eye patch to my presentation at Diana Initiative.
So you've upped it. You've upped it because it was just
it's including those likes we have too. So,
Okay. All right. So please, everybody watching, tell a friend to tell a friend. We need to get to 1,000 likes, 1,000 retweets, and just engage and let's get him in all green everything. So we're gonna. I'm gonna share that after that hashtag all green everything. So let's get that. Let's get that trending Twitter. Let's go. All right, Megan. I'm sorry. Please.
No problem. Love it. And we're going to talk about distraction next, and that's a great distraction idea. So paced breathing. Along with that, we can also synchronize paced breathing with some paired muscle relaxation. So just like slow controlled breathing helps turn on the parasympathetic nervous system, progressive muscle relaxation also does. So through the act of tensing muscle groups on purpose and then releasing, those muscles, we help turn on the parasympathetic nervous system, and we are calmer after doing that. So some people may be familiar with progressive muscle relaxation. If you Google it, there are a ton of free, like the UVM Counseling Center has a whole menu of pre-recorded visualizations, progressive muscle relaxation. So if you want to listen to someone else's voice kind of lead you through those, that's one resource. But there are a million on Google. So progressive muscle relaxation usually starts either at the top of the head or with the feet, and clenching each muscle group like step by step. So starting with the feet, curling the toes in towards the heel and holding and squeezing those muscles for a count of 5, and then releasing for 10 seconds, taking a break between, and then moving up to tensing the calf muscles and the thighs and so on. For the sake of time, I won't lead us through that, but definitely would encourage you to check out that, and continuing to do that slow controlled breathing while purposely tensing muscle groups and then letting them go. That's also, yeah.
I was going to say, yeah, Dwayne shared a link. So I'm actually putting that in the chat right now for the was it uvm.edu health guided mindfulness exercises.
Mm-hmm.
So, okay, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, and I'm sure there are other great. I teach at UVM, so I know a little bit more about what's there. But I'm sure that there are tons of other resources. But that's one that's free. So that would be pairing that breathing with the muscle relaxation to help achieve kind of that calmer state after that's over. Kind of a mini version of that. Sometimes our face can get really tense and we don't even notice. So a few times a day, I'll kind of check in with myself about like have my ears come up to like my shoulders come up to my ears here, and taking a deep breath. And as I exhale, letting my shoulders fall like an inch lower than they were before, or scrunching my face really tight and then releasing after. To notice the difference before and after we tense the facial muscles and then release them, because that helps turn on that parasympathetic nervous system and slow things down. So those are the tip skills. Any questions or thoughts about tip before I move on?
I don't see any questions, but John does say something about Allen Ginsberg's poetry often relies on that sense of synchrony. He had a whole system aligned with Buddhist meditation principles, etc. Likewise, Gerard Manley Hopkins reading either is recommended.
Yeah.
So again, if you guys have, John, again, thank you for the input. If anybody else has any questions or anything they want, feel free to throw it in the chat. Either Dwayne or myself will relay the message to Megan and get the answer to you as soon as possible. So again, thank you.
So that is a tip skill. Again, this is when the emotions are really intense. These are great ones to go to first. Another set of options really to use on a regular basis, as well as when we're in moments of distress, would be self-soothing skills. So anything that is calm and soothing to the 5 senses. So I have some ideas here. So if we notice that we are feeling stressed, tight, angry, and are kind of in that space, I think about self-soothing as kind of the way to hold ourselves with care through that time. So if you've ever taken care of a small child when they hurt themselves, you can't like take that pain away from them. But what you can do is kind of scoop them up and hold them in a more comfortable environment to experience that pain in. And I think about self-soothing as doing that like with our adult selves. Kind of putting us in the most comfortable environment possible in order to experience the painful emotions that we have. And in particular, when it comes to grief and loss, there are so many times where we need to take that time to just sit with and tolerate and be nurtured through it. So nurturing ourselves with anything that is soothing visually. Nature, I think there was just a Time magazine had a big article this year about like the brain on nature, I think is what it was titled, but about how we're wired for the parasympathetic nervous system to turn on with nature views. So whether that's just taking a moment to step outside your home and look up the tree canopy, looking at leaves close up, lighting a candle and watching the flame, looking at beautiful art or scenery, really anything that is soothing to you visually. The other thing I think about with that is if you've ever been with like an overstimulated child, sometimes it can be really helpful to do things to lower the stimulation, like turning off fluorescent lights and having lamps on, or Christmas lights, or candlelight instead of that harsh overhead light. So thinking about that with our central nervous systems aren't that different than children's in terms of what is soothing. So thinking about, can I visually make things more soothing? Being in an environment that's really cluttered also is often stimulating to our central nervous system in a way that can be unhelpful. So even if that just means clearing part of a room so that the angle that you're sitting at has a clear floor and clear surfaces, that can help put our central nervous system at ease. There's sort of a theory that when there is clutter, our brain kind of visually is on alert for whether there could potentially be predators there, even though, like in my room, there's probably no chance that there's a lethal predator. But if it's cluttered, my central nervous system can't totally calm down. So creating a soothing visual environment for yourself, again, even if that's just part of a room, that can be helpful to help nurture ourselves when we're in a painful emotional place. We can soothe ourselves with sound. I just downloaded a great app called Calm. I do not work for them. I'm not receiving funds or anything from them. But that it has all kinds of relaxing music, relaxing nature sounds. There's like a bamboo forest and thunder and rain sounds, beach sounds, as well as like string music, piano music, desert flutes, like all kinds of things. So having a water fountain kind of in the room, like the sound of moving water, can be really soothing. So thinking about if there's some noises outside that are even making us feel more agitated, like a jackhammer next door, maybe turning on a fan and then some soothing sounds to buffer out some of that overstimulating, unpleasant noise. That those could be some options. We can soothe with smell. So having candles on that we enjoy the fragrance of, or aromatherapy, essential oils, baking some bread or cookies, any of those kinds of things are soothing to our olfactory senses. We also can create a positive association with a particular scent if we purposely relax while we have that scent present. So for example, if I go to a natural food store and go to their aromatherapy section, just kind of smelling some of the scents and picking one that I find pleasant and that I don't have any strong association or history with. And then having that essential oil present while I do progressive muscle relaxation, meditation, visualization, and then put it away when I'm done. And then I can carry that in my backpack. And if there's a time that I want to relax, pulling out that scent that I have created an association with can be a really effective way of helping the body calm down. So that's an idea, picking a lavender or vanilla or some scent that you enjoy that you don't have a strong history with. It's kind of the reverse of often like trauma triggers, where certain smells set people having flashbacks or things like that. We can kind of create the opposite effect by having calming time with a particular smell. We can soothe with our sense of taste. It's important in this, if we're going to use taste, that we be enjoying food mindfully in just small portions of something. So this is not about, like, binge eating can definitely be a maladaptive coping mechanism. If we're going to self-soothe with taste, we're just going to have a small treat and eat it slowly, really savoring every moment of it, experiencing it fully, noticing the temperature, the texture, like eating it in a slow motion way. So a little bit of hot chocolate or a square of dark chocolate, delicious clementine, orange, any of those kinds of soothing tastes, or anything in a bowl with a spoon in a small way. So mashed potatoes or ice cream, but eating in a slow motion way and nurturing with taste. And then with touch, touch can definitely be one of the ways that we can soothe ourselves. Taking a bubble bath, wrapping ourselves in our favorite cozy blanket, kind of putting pillows in the corner and making a pillow cocoon to kind of just feel held by. I have one client who really likes the pressure of, like, she has like a thin mattress she keeps on top of her other mattress, and she kind of goes between them when she wants to feel kind of held and compressed, but not in a way that hurts her. So any of those sensations, the feeling of silk or smooth rocks to rub in one's hand, having a lavender foot bath or asking someone else to stroke your hair or rub your back. Again, thinking about soothing small children or babies. Touch is one of the main ways that we soothe them. So thinking about how can we soothe ourselves with touch, whether we invite someone in our lives to help us with that, or whether it's providing soothing sensations to ourselves if we don't want to include someone else in that. So those are some suggestions to kind of take care of ourselves through the five senses. And these aren't designed to help to make the emotions go away. It's just to be kind to ourselves and treating ourselves in loving ways when especially when we're having a hard time. That's when I talk to clients who are kind of hesitant about giving up certain maladaptive coping mechanisms like self-harm or binge eating or purging. I kind of talk about if any of us are experiencing a strong emotion and we do something destructive to ourselves to try to get rid of that emotion, it's really a way of dishonoring our emotions, and it gives us the behavioral message that we're not worthy of healthy, loving coping. I was talking to an adolescent the other day about, who was sort of saying, well, like she wanted to keep self-harm and saying, like, if one of your friends was going through this really painful emotional time, would you tell her to stop it and stop feeling it and shut up and cut her? Was that because she was talking about kind of talking to herself that way? And it really truly kind of thought about that in terms of what kind of message it gives herself if she treats herself in that destructive way versus with loving kindness when she's having the hardest time. Our emotions exist for really good reasons. And when we allow and tolerate the emotions and hold ourselves through them, that really plays into our self-concept and self-esteem over time. So self-soothing can be done every day. It can be done when we're in distress. It can be done when we're not in distress. So that is self-soothing. Another set of skills that we'll talk about are distraction techniques. So technically, the tip skills that we talked about a little bit ago are a form of distraction with sensations. So that's actually the S at the end. Is that those are some intense sensations, but we'll talk about some other ideas as well. So distraction includes distracting with activities. Everyone has already done this, whether you've ever said, I'm using the coping skill of distraction or not. Like when we say, I'm going to watch this movie to take my mind off of my worry about the test results that I'm going to get, later this week. So we can distract ourselves with cleaning things, alphabetizing things, calling somebody and hearing about their lives, doing some action that can take our mind off of something. Distraction skills are really helpful if our emotion intensity is so high that we probably are not going to be constructive in trying to problem solve at that time. Distraction skills are also really helpful if the thing that we're having emotions about can't be solved, or that there's nothing to do about it today. So for example, if a client has a financial aid problem on Friday at 5:30 and no one's going to be in the office till Monday, distraction can be really helpful because there's nothing to do to solve that issue until the person's back in the office. So distraction is a great set of techniques to try. Sometimes we use distraction as procrastination or avoidance. So if you can solve the problem, if you are in a mental state where if your emotional level is such that you could solve the problem, it probably is in our best interest to go ahead and solve the problem. This is more, so it could be avoidance if you could solve the problem and you're doing one of these things instead. So just want to kind of differentiate avoidance from distraction as a skill. So we can distract with activities. We can distract through contributing. So going online, maybe looking at the local United Way website, seeing what opportunities there are to volunteer, making cookies and dropping them off at your, provider's office or a school, or actually, I don't know with COVID if they're taking this, but doing for a neighbor, doing something kind to kind of take our minds off of maybe our problems and to do something kind for someone else that helps us feel good. So that's one of the C's in the acronym accepts. The other C is with comparison. So sometimes we can distract with maybe comparing what we're going through right now with what we've been through before. I know last time I talked about the death of my mom and dad. And when I am feeling sad about things, sometimes it is helpful to kind of keep in mind, how big is this thing compared to other things I've been through. Another way to do that is the catastrophe scale, 0 to 100, kind of how big of a deal is this thing? Because a lot of the events that I have really intense emotions about, from 0 to 100 being losing everything and everyone in a natural disaster, a lot of the things I get really upset about are a 10. And if I can kind of keep that in mind with comparisons, it's not meant to invalidate my emotions, but help me to keep perspective. Another comparison idea I like is the 5-5-5. How important is this thing going to be in 5 days, in 5 weeks, in 5 months? Because if it's that I told a joke and no one laughed at a meeting I was in, and I'm feeling really embarrassed about that, thinking like in 5 days, how big of a deal is this going to be? In 5 months, how big of a deal is this going to be? That comparison can help. So that's a distraction idea. The E in accepts is for distracting with other emotions. So the goal with this would be to try to kind of try to stir up a different emotion than the one I'm stuck in. So if it's really being stuck in a lot of just underwater sadness, after one has sat with that for a while, may be distracting by like watching a scary movie to help elicit the fear emotion as a distraction from the sadness. Or if feeling really angry and tense, watching a tearjerker movie, or watching stand-up comedy. So anything that would maybe pull up a different emotion to help pull us out of one that we've been stuck in for a while. Could be a distraction idea. The P is for pushing away, to temporarily deny a problem for a while, to just like push away, like, I'm not thinking about this now. I'm not thinking about this now. There's nothing I can do about it this weekend. I'm going to banish the thought every time it comes up. Even saying the word stop out loud, stop, not thinking about this anymore, is a distraction idea. The T in accepts is for thoughts, distracting with thoughts. I use this a lot, particularly if I'm nervous, like in a medical setting. I kind of go up in my head and I distract myself with some sort of thought. So I might count backwards from 100 by sevens. I might think about everyone I've ever met named George. I might think about every state capital I can name in my mind, is a way of like not focusing on something that's upsetting, or something I'm anxious about that anxiety is not helpful with. So those would be some ideas for thoughts. A mindfulness exercise I'll lead us through is a 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, which is a way of distracting with thoughts. So I'll do that in a moment as well. And then the S is for sensations, and we talked about some already, with the temperature. Other sensations that can help be distracting might be things that, like with taste, like an atomic fireball candy, that is just like a jolt and helps us kind of distract from an emotion that we're in. The feeling of like rolling down a hill, a lemon, super sour, like lemon head, kind of candy. The sensation of like squeezing a ball really hard or throwing a rubber ball against a wall really hard. Screaming if you're in a place that no one's going to call the police. So maybe in the car or away if you live in the country. But the act of screaming is an intense sensation, and that can be a distraction as well. So any of those would be distraction ideas. And I think I have a handout that has some other ideas on there. So the one I wanted to teach you about under thoughts is it's a grounding exercise called 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. So it's near the bottom there. That if we are feeling overwhelmed with emotion, that we can help bring ourselves to the here and now by identifying things through the 5 senses. So the 5 is for 5 things you can see. So everyone could just take a moment and do that this moment. And just in your mind, like neutrally label what you see. So lamp, painting, carpet, fan, table. That's 5 things I can see. 4 things I can hear. The dishwasher, air conditioner, birds outside, the sound of my own breath.
Tinnitus.
Tinnitus, sorry. 4 things you can hear. 3 things you can touch. So in your space, 3 things you could touch. Upholstery on the chair, wood, ceramic bowl. 2 things I can smell. Dove and Tide. 1 thing I could taste. I have a drink over here. I could taste that. So at the end of 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, like you're in the place that you're in. You've identified things that you can see, things that you can hear. And if you're not currently under threat, it also helps the brain connect that like there is no threat here. I don't need to be in the flight or fight response. Like I'm here, the walls are yellow. I only have to deal with this moment. I'm here right now. So that is a thought distraction idea. So the skills used to distract ourselves temporarily from unpleasant emotions. If I am coaching someone to use distraction because their emotions are so intense, it's not probably a good idea to like write an email to a boss in that moment. The goal would be to bring the emotion intensity down to a level where the emotion still can carry out their function of motivating a person to do what like that emotion is there for, but at a level where they're also able to access logic and rationality. So distraction isn't meant to get rid of the emotion or to like escape it forever. It's often used as a way of like bringing the central nervous system down enough that then we can move forward into using other skills. But that is distraction. Improve the moment is a skill to use when we can't solve the problem right away. Maybe we have to hang in. So maybe our flight was delayed and just hanging out in the airport. Rather than focusing on unhelpful thoughts and getting caught in those swirls, we could improve the moment by doing things like guided imagery. So that link that Dwayne put up earlier from UVM, that there's a bunch of options there on that menu of various images. So guided imagery usually is someone leading someone through, like going to the beach or to the top of a mountain and noticing all the colors and the sights and the smells in a way that when we focus on that, our central nervous system follows. So if I'm visualizing something beautiful and calm, that helps my central nervous system come down. We can improve the moment by focusing on meaning, finding like whatever positives we can in a crappy situation, which is not the same thing as saying, I'm glad this happened so I could learn this lesson, but it is like making the most of it, given that that's what it is, and looking for opportunities to grow, even with things we never wish we would have been through. But given that they have happened, how can we respond to that in a way that we can find meaning and purpose? So that is an improve the moment option. Prayer, for anyone who uses prayer in other times in life, sometimes we forget to use prayer when we are in distress. So having that in the improve skill is kind of a reminder for anyone who does use prayer to maybe add it to the toolbox for distress coping. R is for relaxation. We already talked about some of the options for doing that. O is for one thing at a time, which is mindfulness, which we're going to get to in just a little bit. We could improve the moment by taking a mental vacation temporarily. So like a 5-minute, I'm going to close my eyes and remember my trip to Jamaica or Italy, or taking a blanket in the backyard and having a picnic and kind of pretending I'm on vacation in my yard for 5 minutes. But doing something to kind of mentally be on vacation for a little bit with the plan to go back and then and face whatever's in the day and in the schedule. And then the E is for encouragement. Oftentimes our self-talk can be really defeatist and we don't even notice that that's playing in the background. So really using encouraging self-talk. So some of the ideas like you've got this, you've been through hard things before, there's evidence that you can get through hard things. I'm talking to myself in third person. I do that sometimes. Like, all right, you got this. But saying, like, all I can do is focus on doing my best in this, and the end will take care of itself. So a friend of mine was a marathon runner, and she talked about how she would use encouragement. Just, can you keep this pace from here to the next light? She didn't have to worry about the next 15 miles, just from here to the next corner. Can I keep the pace now? Yes, I can. All right, you go, you got this. So using that encouragement versus you'll never get there. It's never going to work for you. Kind of putting stop, like saying stop to those thoughts and using more encouraging self-talk. Those are improve the moment skills. Okay, any questions so far? Other comments before we talk about sitting with emotion?
I don't see any except for one from Melody Bennett, who says this has been very helpful, and I totally agree with that, especially the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 one. I think that definitely helps you get out of your own head. So again, thank you for sharing.
Yeah, great. So what I've talked about so far is when like emotions are really intense and it feels like we can't, it's like unbearable to be in our skin for another minute. There also is a time, and so those are ways of helping regulate the emotion, bringing the intensity down, distracting, soothing ourselves, those kinds of things. Don't want to give the impression that I want us to try to turn away from emotions. Emotions are really important, and when it comes to grief and loss, sitting with and tolerating the emotion, like letting the emotion come, is a really important part of healing and being able to move forward and integrating the loss into like our existential fabric. So when emotions do come and we're deciding to sit with them, they're at a level that we can tolerate. Working on experiencing emotion like a wave. It's letting it be, noticing feelings and urges. Doesn't mean we have to act on them, just noticing where they are, labeling that feeling or that urge, like sadness is welling up in my chest, or I feel like crying, or I feel like kicking something. So notice the feeling, label it, allow it. Identify any judgments about it. Like, well, I'm feeling shame that I feel sad about this thing still because it was 3 months ago. Noticing that judgment, like I shouldn't be feeling this way, and saying like, it's not that I should or shouldn't, I do. So working to identify and dispute the judgments as they come, and to self-soothe as we are experiencing the emotion like a wave. So I kind of imagine like waves of sadness washing over me. It peaks, it dissipates. There's a life course to each wave of an emotion. Another one might follow right after, but kind of giving in, submitting to that it's happening this moment, and just allowing ourselves to ride it, letting go. So riding the wave, stepping back, not fighting the wave. So the visual I have is kind of someone standing on a beach trying to dig in the sand and hold back the tide, and like the wave knocking them over, versus like riding the top of the surf, going with it, letting it wash over us, letting it be, and just sitting in it sometimes. A lot of times we do things, like we're so afraid of how that emotion will feel that we do a bunch of things to keep away from that, to distract from that, sometimes destructive things. And it can take courage to face it and to sit with and tolerate and come through the emotion and out the other side. And each time that we do that, we've completed a little bit more of our grief work. Every time that we do sit with and tolerate that emotion, it's productive to allow the emotion, as painful as that is. So those are some emotion regulation ideas. Mindfulness is kind of a separate category, and it is really a mindset. And a lot of the skills I'm going to talk about draw from thousands of years of Buddhist and Zen wisdom, but how we can reduce our suffering, like in the here and now, and particularly when we're struggling with painful emotions related to grief. So mindfulness can help us accept and tolerate painful emotions. The capacity to pay attention non-judgmentally to the present and be fully in our five senses helps us lead a more rich life. It also helps reduce suffering, because a lot of times we replay moments of the past over and over again to where they take up a lot of today, even if they're not happening here, or we sort of project ourselves into the future with things that may or may not happen. So mindfulness can allow us to be in the here and now, feeling the feelings that we do today. And to keep in mind when it comes to grief and loss, we don't have to take on the entire future with this new reality today. We can't, the whole future isn't here to do. So the only pain we ever have to accept is the pain of today and the pain of this moment. And the you of tomorrow will deal with tomorrow. And that's really what mindfulness is all about, being in the here and now and only kind of having to deal with what's going on right now. So a concise definition of mindfulness that I have listed here is paying attention on purpose in the present without judgment. So really working on awareness and acceptance of whatever's going on. So whether that's an emotion rising in me, whatever's going on in the room around me, accepting, which isn't the same thing as approving of, it just means acknowledgement of. Mindfulness is when we can combine awareness with acceptance and be present in the here and now. With the goals of increasing our quality of life, increasing control of our mind, so we're not such a servant to our thoughts or urges or impulses, to be able to experience reality as it is, decreasing suffering by not spending energy hating how we feel, just allowing how we feel, and increasing happiness and our capacity for joy, because we are more free when we have more options and when we're more living in the here and now. When mindfulness increases, our awareness increases, our acceptance increases, our quality of life increases. So a lot of reasons to be practicing mindfulness. I'll talk about some of those things. So we can pay attention mindfully to body sensations, to perceptions, just like the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 skill I taught, tuning into the five senses. We can pay attention to thoughts that go through our mind and emotions. So for example, one of the cognitions I've learned to notice when I'm having is I can't do this, because a lot of times I have the thought I can't do this while I'm simultaneously doing the thing that I'm saying I can't do. So when I notice the can't thought come in, be like, is that really a can't? Is it a won't? That's okay if it's a won't. But am I saying I can't do this thing? But what I really mean is it's hard. So, noticing what those thoughts are. I can't stand it. That's a distorted thought. Is what does not standing it even mean? It might mean this is really painful. I wish I didn't feel this way. Those might be true, but I can't stand it. That sentence isn't accurate, because I've stood lots of things. And mindfulness of emotions. Yeah.
And Davin, I want to be respectful of everybody's time. How are we doing on time right now?
Oh, I'm good on time. It's
Okay.
it's all dependent on you guys.
Okay.
Yeah, I think, do we have like 2 minutes left? Is that what?
Whatever, like I said, whatever you got,
Okay.
whatever you need to do to get through this. This is a great conversation, so I'm good.
Okay, great. Um, so I just have some kind of concepts here with mindfulness, viewing thoughts as transient mental events, like sensations of the mind. Um, Not accepting thoughts as accurate reflections of reality or the truth. Sometimes, like, our thoughts aren't. I mean, my brain tends to fire off thoughts as though they're facts, but a lot of times I'm making assumptions, and sometimes it's just helpful to say, like, I'm making the assumption that that person doesn't want to talk to me versus that person doesn't want to talk to me, if I don't know that that's the case, if I don't have evidence that that's true. Seeing thoughts as numerous and transient. So just some approaches to seeing our thoughts. I listed a stream of consciousness exercise, and this is one that everyone could try on their own. But particularly at times where your mind is really busy, kind of imagining that your mind is a river and that thoughts are boats, or that sensations, urges, memories are boats, and just imagine observing them coming and going, trying not to jump into the boat if you're using this particular exercise. Um, so,
So,
yeah,
Megan, sorry, we had one question
yeah.
from Ty. Says, can negative verbal be considered harmful when learning new skills?
Like
Right.
negative self-talk.
Yeah. I'm assuming that's what he means. Ty, if you're here, please, you can elaborate further.
Sure. I don't think we need to like, if negative thoughts, if your brain, like, if my brain fires off negative thoughts or self-critical thoughts, I don't have to judge the fact that my brain fired those thoughts off. I can choose to respond to it in a way of like, yeah, those thoughts aren't helpful. I'm going to, like, let them go down the river, and I'm going to put my attention on this other thing. Like, what are some more effective ways to narrate what's happening? What are more neutral ways to describe what just happened? So not adding judgment on top of whatever the self-criticism was, just sort of noticing it non-judgmentally and moving on, like letting it just go by. Which is kind of the purpose of the stream of consciousness exercise, is to be more aware of our thoughts as they come in, and not get caught up, not jump in the boat, not jump in and get caught up in the content of the thought, but just to watch the thoughts. Like, what is my brain doing this afternoon? I'm going to check in and see. Yeah, when we do that, we're less likely to be ruled by, kind of automatic thoughts, or just assume that all of our thoughts are true.
And I can say from a cognitive perspective, if you're having negative thoughts, your attention is not on learning that new skill. It's on something completely different. So that could impact the actual learning that you're doing as well.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Ty, I hope that answered your question.
And I also want to point out that no one sucks at mindfulness. I had a mindfulness instructor, like, say one day, if your mind wanders, that's normal. Like, that's what it does. Like, it's not about not having wandering thoughts. It's just about bringing it back when we want to. So being, gentle with yourself around learning any of these skills or practice, like anything that we're new to, it's going to take some time to practice before we feel like we have a good handle on things.
Yeah,
So,
like I was
so
saying, when I count to 20 to fall asleep, when I catch myself into another thought, I start over again. It's like, okay, you got to start back over because you were thinking about something else. And you just keep that cycle going, and eventually your mind is just going to start to relax and cool down.
Yeah. So to sort of wrap it up here, in terms of like our trajectory of our grief, it's normal to feel significantly impacted by loss for many months and even sometimes longer. So giving yourself grace, being gentle with yourself, your emotions will come and go as they do. We don't need to criticize or judge it. We can notice that it's there and use some of these skills to help tolerate the emotions that come up related to grief. The effective path forward is through the grief, not trying to just either shove it down and avoid it, or have life only be about that loss. Healthy grieving is a balance of grieving and living, letting ourselves feel the feeling and focusing on like what is still here. Telling the story of the loss can help us to process emotions that we have about it, and over time that can take some of the intensity down. So telling the story about if you were with someone when they passed, in the days leading up to the end of a relationship, like whatever it might be, telling the story is a way that helps us cognitively and then physically regulate ourselves related to the loss. So it's important to talk to people about it, particularly like validating people in our lives. individuals need different things in grief, so it can be helpful to communicate to others what would be helpful. Some people want like people to check in, or some people would like more physical touch. Some people would like no one to touch them. So really communicating what what your style is, like what your preferences are. I think a lot of times when it comes to loss, like people around don't know what to do. So helping give them as much information as you can, because I think a lot of people want to help and they don't know what to say. They don't know what to do. And as humans, we can live through the worst things imaginable and make meaning and create a life worth living, even with the reality of those traumas, those losses in our story. So I guess I find hope and inspiration constantly in the stories that people share with me, the ways that people have grown in response to really horrific things that I wish had never happened, and yet they did. So humans astound me in terms of our ability to make meaning, to find purpose, to create lives worth living, even with really painful events in those, in those life courses. And then I've just included here a reading list. Anyone who would like to look more into some readings about grief and loss, that these are some books that I have found helpful and useful. So I've listed those there. I don't have any ties to any of these people or publishers or anything, just books I've read. And I think that is it.
All right. Well, like I said, thank you for that so much. Like I said, I know it's been extremely helpful for me personally, but I mean, if I know you probably can't see the chat, but a few people have definitely chimed in. Kalila Scott, friend of the show, says this is great advice. Melody Bennett, like I said before, said this is very helpful. I know John also said something similar. So again, I thank you for taking the time out and giving this two-part presentation. Again, let's see, that actually there he is. There, thank you for your insights and your time. So, but yeah, on a personal note, again, I want to thank you. I mean, some of the things that you said in the last 2 weeks has been extremely helpful for me as well, and I'm definitely going to be putting a lot of that to use, especially with a lot of stuff that's been just going on lately. So the timing of this was perfect. So I thank you for doing this. I thank Dwayne for reaching out to me and asking me to share the platform to let you come on and do this. This is definitely something that we've been talking about over the course of the last, I guess, over the course of the last year or so, honestly, on and off, just on Twitter and stuff like that. So, like I said, the timing of it was just perfect. And again, I just can't thank you enough. Um, I'm not sure if you're on the socials, but if you want to take a moment and just let people know how to find you if they have any other questions.
I'm not.
They can reach out to me.
Yeah. He's the
I'll filter and buffer.
All right. Well, Dwayne, tell them how to reach you then.
I'm not on that channel. I'm on Twitter.
Yes.
And it's Gnugro, 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 GNUGRO.
Yep. And of course, you guys know how to reach me. You can follow me on Twitch, twitch.tv/djax120. You can follow me here on the Alpha Cybersecurity YouTube channel. So youtube.com/c/Alpha Cybersecurity. For socials, you can catch me on Twitter and Instagram at djax_alpha. And again, if you have any questions to me, I'll let Dwayne know, and he can let Megan know, and we can get that to you. So one last check to see if there's any other questions. So let's see. John said thank you. Kellen says thank you. So honestly, it's just been a lot of thank yous. And again,
Devin, thank you again for allowing us to have this stage and allowing this to happen. I've been seeing a lot of it. A lot of people really hurting. I mean, people just straight hurting over loss and things that they want to do. Even just seeing friends, you can feel the emotion when they tweet about it.
Yeah,
and I find it just like, I think there's something we can do about this. Minimum, we can give some strategies to people, and help people understand, kind of identify and understand what they're going through. Yeah.
Yep.
So thank you again.
No, not a problem. Like I said, I felt the same way. Definitely something that we need to have the conversation. We definitely need to have more conversations like this because again, this is this is something that's not, cool or sexy or whatever you want to call it. I mean, honestly, I know it's Monday and stuff like that, but I mean, the viewership right now is lower than usual. Why? Because this isn't and I expected that. This isn't a comfortable conversation to have, or even in having the conversation, it makes you reflect on certain things, and now it might trigger some certain emotions. So a lot of people kind of avoid it. But the beauty of this show or this platform right here is that it's going to be here. I'm going to put it up on my channel. You guys are going to have uh, videos, copies of the videos and the audio as well, and we can get that out there. And then hopefully my plan is to bring other people on or bring you guys back, and we can continue to have this conversation because it's definitely something that has to happen, that has to be normalized and amplified, especially um, over the course of the last year and a half. Just everything that's going on in the world between COVID and protests and this and that and whatever it is that triggered different people. Um, Everybody's emotions is like a powder keg right now. So um, I think it's definitely important that we have these conversations. So again, uh, kudos for putting this together, and thank you for doing this, and again, reaching out to me. So, ladies and gentlemen, if there aren't any other questions, we will close out the show. Again, this has been Grief and Coping Strategies Part 2 with Megan and Dwayne Dunstan. I'm your host, Davin Jackson. This is InfoSec Unplugged on Monday, not Thursday. But if you guys, if you guys missed any of this or you missed part 1, I think I put up the link earlier. But if not, you can check it on my YouTube and Twitch channels, and wherever else you get your information from me. Hopefully I'll get, like I said, get that information to Megan and Dwayne, and we can again amplify these two episodes. So with that being said, thank you for joining. I know it's Monday and everybody's kind of still getting their week together, but Megan, Dwayne, I appreciate you both. Like I said, anytime you want to come back, let me know. Oh yeah. Like I said, we also got to get the hashtag all green everything going. So let's get that. Let's amplify that hashtag to get Dwayne in all green everything for the Diana Initiative conference coming up. It's a great cause. It's a great conference. Unfortunately, like I said, I won't be participating in any talks this year, but you guys are going to be in for a treat. Dwayne's awesome. So, ladies and gentlemen, everybody watching, this has been another episode of InfoSec Unplugged. I have been your host, Davin Jackson. These have been my guests, Megan and Dwayne Dunstan. Please watch it, take notes, rewatch it, tell a friend to tell a friend. Let's get this amplified, and I will see you guys soon. Like I said, I'm on break. I'm on vacation, so I will be back with a new lineup and more conversations. So until then, you guys take care.
Thank you so much.
Right.